I'm sure there's more than one way to do this, but I have been watching YouTube videos to see kind of the best way to put seam sealer down so it still looks nice and neat. Now, the thing is that the KBS is so thick and penetrating that there kind of aren't any gaps. So this might be more of a theoretical exercise than a practical one. I've done the two back seams along the floor and over the tunnel, and that seemed to work out kind of nice. I like it. Now I'm doing the seam that's part of where the new passenger floor pan was put in. It hasn't really got any gaps left, so the KBS has kind of filled it up. But it's kind of working out nice, and it's fun to do because it's working out nice. So I'm doing it anyway. I'm not being super pedantic about getting this tape mega straight. It's more just about preventing the seam sealer, when I flatten it out, level it out, preventing it from, this is hard with gloves on, preventing it from spreading too far and just looking messy. There really is plenty of seam sealer left between the new floor pan and the old floor pan. So I think they did a fair bit of overlap, judging by where I'm seeing some spot welds and also some screws. But I didn't gouge out all of the seam sealer. I really just scraped it off the edges. So maybe really all I'm doing now on this passenger floor pan is just for aesthetics, just to make it look like it has been done. At least it will remind me that it is sealed. In this corner, because the new floor pan didn't kind of sit and perfectly match the contours of the floor, there's a great big gap in the corner, and that is, I reckon they could easily have used an entire tube of seam sealer just in that one corner. But again, I just picked out most of it that I could that was visible and left the rest in there. I guess the gap I'm leaving is probably about 2 centimetres to an inch. I'm also not super firm with pressing this painter's tape down either, because the KBS was only just painted on probably 3 hours ago, the final coat, and even though it's absolutely set up and completely touch dry, I just didn't want to push my luck. Now again, this is probably more for show than anything, because there is no crack to push it into. Now the next step is just a little paintbrush dipped in mineral terps. I remember seeing that brushed look in the seam sealer, the factory seam sealer that I pulled out. And a few people on YouTube were mentioning it, so this was one of the ways to try and get that effect. At least it's a lot neater than I think it would be if I just used my finger to smooth it out. I think the terps just helps the brush slide over the seam sealer, but at the same time it stops it from drying and sticking on the brush. Oh, we're done. I've got to put more on. There is so much KBS back here on this back seam, and there already was seam sealer in there, that this just feels a bit ridiculous doing it, but I'm doing it. And the idea is that all my mistakes come off with the tape. You want a closer look? So that's what we just did. Well, I just did, you watched. Up along the top. And then here's that really, really big corner. Although I'm pretty happy, that looks a lot neater than it did before I pulled all of that old seam sealer out of there from when the repair of the floor was done. I'm pretty happy with that. As for the back of the cab, I haven't done any seam sealer in there yet, and that's partly because I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do from the floor up, whether I'll just go and strip that back too and put more KBS on, or whether I'll try and preserve it as much as I can, because there isn't any rust and the paint's in still pretty good condition back here. It's kind of like keeping a little bit of it in a time capsule in a way. So yeah, I'm not quite sure what I'll do with seam sealer back here until I make that decision.